A new era in Oregon State football starts Friday. The Oregon State Beavers host Weber State. And for a preview, Coach Gary Anderson joins us for the next half hour. It's time for Beavers Inside the Huddle.
Everybody be a playmaker. Let's go. Here we go. Toward the back of the end zone. Touchdown, Beavers!
There it is, Reser Stadium. It'll be the site of Friday's 5 o'clock kick between the Oregon State Beavers and the Weber State. Well, who cares this week, right? Along with Steve Priest, I'm Dusty Hara from the Flat Tail Brewery Beavers Studio as you are inside the huddle. We'll go every week a half hour long of Oregon State football talk with the coach himself, Gary Anderson. Steve, how you doing? Thanks for being a part of this.
My pleasure, Dusty. This is going to be exciting. Get to talk to Coach every week and take a look in the rearview mirror every week and then also look straight ahead.
As this season gets underway, let's take a look and forecast forward on the Oregon State schedule. There it is, September 4th, Weber State, then a trip to Michigan State, San Jose State back in Reser, and then the Pac-12 slate moves forward. It's a tough conference, as always, huh?
Well, yeah, and you got to win some games out at the first. And you mentioned Michigan State. Is Michigan up there second? That's a good football team, even though their record was see last year and they've changed coaches. They pick up a coach that makes it a tough football game.
Well, we took one of our own from the Big Ten and got him here in Corvallis. Gary Anderson coming over from Utah State, then to Wisconsin, finding his way back west, and now in Corvallis. And what to expect in this first season, Steve? Where do we start here? I mean, you look at the progression of the guy's career from Utah State to Wisconsin. There's something that keeps on happening year in and year out. More wins start piling up for this guy.
They win more and more, and that's been Gary's history all the way along. And I think if you look at him as a defensive coordinator when he was in that position in Utah, they just kept getting better and better until they were 13-0 there and beat a very good Alabama team, if you remember.
Yep, absolutely.
He wins.
He does win, and now we're going to bring him in. Coach Gary Anderson joining us live from Corvallis. Coach, thank you for joining the program.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Fired up to be here.
All right,
it's finally here, right? We get to play soon.
It has been 9 long months. Oregon State fans have been waiting for the first game to finally get underway since you arrived in Corvallis. How does it feel to finally be ready for a game week, game preparations, and Weber State, week 1 opponent?
Well, you get to this point and you start thinking about all the hard work that these kids have put in, that the staff's put in, and it's just a culmination of a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of effort. And right now you sit back and take a big deep breath and try to think of something that you forgot. But we've got it pretty well covered for these kids. They're in a good spot, but it's an emotional time. First game of the year is always very emotional for the kids and for the staffs to be able to go out there. And but once the first couple snaps go by, it's another football game, and we're youthful. It'll be important how we handle that, but we're very excited about having an opportunity to play Weber State in Reser Stadium.
Now, Coach, you get there in the offseason. You have the offseason program. A lot of changes happen when you got to campus. In the winter, it all started with the workouts. What was the biggest change that you got to make these guys happen in the weight room?
Well, I don't really know. I didn't really dwell on what was going on in the past or where it was. We just evaluated our kids. Coach Simon and his staff do an unbelievable job. I put a lot of pressure early on the position coaches to be able to understand where their kids are at and then learn about the kids. We identified ourselves as a team that was very young, a team that had to get stronger, and we decided to push them extremely hard, not just through one really traditional off-season program. We had 2 of them, and then we had a very difficult summer as we went through, and these kids just kept pounding through it and handling it, and I think they went through a very difficult camp, and now we've got their legs back where they need to be. But the emphasis was on, number 1, building some mental toughness. When you have young kids, they have to be challenged, they have to be pushed in a very positive way, but they have to understand that break down the barriers of where they think they can be and get into new areas of their lives as far as athletics, and understand that it's not high school anymore. They're playing against the best of the best. This is the Pac-12 conference, and you're going to be playing against tremendous athletes, and you win games in the offseason. In my opinion, we have the opportunity to start playing them now, but those games are won in the offseason, and those games are won in recruiting, quite frankly.
Coach, some of these kids changed remarkably from Evan's strength and conditioning program. Examples, some of your offensive linemen have lost weight. They've gotten back. They look in more shape. They look tougher. They look bigger. They look like they're physically just more capable of carrying on a football game.
Yeah, I think they've done a good job, and a lot of the credit goes to Coach Simon, obviously. Stacy does a tremendous job with the nutrition side of things, and then it's the kids. You know, you can say what you want as a coach, as a nutritionist, as a strength coach. You can put them in the right direction, but they only know what's going in their mouths. They only know how they're sleeping. Only they know how hard they're pushing themselves in the weight room, and I think our kids accepted that challenge for the most part, and we're very small in our senior class, but our senior class put a lot of high expectations on our young men day in and day out, whether it was a run in July or whether it was one of those first workouts in the month of January, or competing against each other in spring ball. These kids had high expectations, and they understand where they are. They understand they are chasing right now. We are not in a position to say we're on the top of the top. We're chasing other people, and you have to earn your right to say that you've caught anybody. And our kids right now are excited about that chase and excited to see how far we've come.
You know, Coach, one of the interesting things when you take over a program, you're talking about that chase, is also at the same time you're building the relationships with the players, and the rest of your staff is, you know, talk about where you were from day one when you walked on campus and there was that uncertainty to where you are now less than 24 hours before kickoff.
Yeah, it's been a great few months as we've been here. And you know, when you first start, our goal was quite simple. We gave them our policy manual, we gave them our core values, we gave them our plan to win, and we don't have a bunch of rules, and we don't deviate from those rules and those core values. That is who we are, and we set it out there for the kids, said this is where we're going and what the direction is, and hopefully you can all hang in there and you want to be part of it. We set some academic goals for them to push themselves, and the key thing is kids are going to trust you when you deserve to be trusted. And we continually tell the young men that when you need something, we're going to be there for you. We're going to push you really hard, really hard. We're going to make you uncomfortable a lot of the times, but we're going to be there for you, and we're not going to ask you to do things that we know that you can't do. That in turn, I think, builds the confidence in them. It builds a family structure to where they know that they can look at you, they can come to you when they have a problem, an issue. You know, I just had a meeting yesterday with the leadership committee, and the meeting with the leadership committee was great. There was kids asking me questions. They're not afraid to communicate, and that tells us that we've done a pretty good job as a coaching staff of letting these kids understand they can voice their concerns. They don't need to sit back and worry about what they're asking me or asking their position coaches, because we're really there for them. We've built that relationship up. That's a credit to the assistant coaches. That's a credit to the kids in the program that they will allow us to be involved in their lives on, and really most importantly off the field, in their academic and their social worlds.
We're just getting underway as Beavers Inside the Huddle rolls on. We got two quarterbacks in one offense. Plus, we got a little bit of defense to talk about. We're discussing the win totals and the constant improvement from Gary Anderson year by year at his previous stops last time we spoke. Well, now, here's what the offenses do. You can see on the left, Coach Anderson's offense steadily increasing from a scoring output. Meanwhile, on the right, what Oregon State's been doing over the last handful of years, a little bit of up and down action. So we bring in offense. Dusty Harris, Steve Priest with you, along with Coach Gary Anderson and Beavers Inside the Huddle. Let's go to the In Focus Mondo Pad collaboration that works and talk a little offense.
Well, Coach, we're going to show what the Beaver Nation has been looking at for the last 12 seasons, and that's a pro-style Mike Riley offense. A couple of running backs, a flanker, a split end, and a tight end. From that, now we're going to go to what we call the spread, and it could be so many different things. You can talk us through this. We're starting out with just a 2-by-2, two receivers on each side, and the various things that Dave Baldwin, your offensive coordinator, is going to create. Why don't you talk about the variations you have and how this changes play to play?
Well, the biggest thing that the spread does is it spreads out the field. That's the name of the spread offense. It gives you the ability to create the inside run zones for our main run plays is basically going to be the zone play here. Oregon State for many years, you know, we have run the inside zone with Coach Riley's pro-style offense. It's been a major part of it. That's not a great departure. There's just less people to block up on the front of the defensive crew there to get on. The numbers in the box change right there at that, looking at a 2-by-2 set. If you have a 6-man box, which would be typically 4 defensive linemen and 2 linebackers, it gives you the opportunity to run inside zone There's one blocker unaccounted for. That blocker that doesn't accounted for will be a defensive end. That defensive end is now going to be responsible for the quarterback. And what you get when you play with the quarterback in a shotgun situation, now you're able to put the quarterback in a position to run the football, which compromises that defensive end. Is he going to squeeze the end line of scrimmage, be responsible for the cutback of the running back, but also he has to be able to play the quarterback if the quarterback decides to pull the ball. So in the run game, that's the basis of the zone. It also, in the throw game, it spreads the field. It gives you the ability to identify coverages a little bit cleaner and easier at times because, quite frankly, their receivers, or the corners have to go out and be involved in coverage. So, the spread does a lot for you. It allows you to be able to run the ball physically, which we want to run the ball first and foremost, and it also gives you the ability to stretch the field from a formation standpoint with pre-snap awareness.
Coach, we're moving on to some formations. We're going from a 2-2 to a 3-1. We're also going to take a look at just an empty, so we get to the 5 receivers. How do you call those as far as the situation is concerned? Is it personnel? Is it just simply position on the field? You've talked about it briefly, but talk about personnel in this situation.
Well, if you get to a 3-by-1 set, a lot of times you got a one receiver over there. He's isolated, and he can be rolled over the top of on a safety. But the decision is for the defense to decide: are they going to play him up in man coverage? Are they going to play off in thirds coverage? What kind of athlete do you have over there? And that's where a young man like Jordan becomes very, very tough to defend and deal with. If he's on that one side, there's the 3-by-1 side. Now you've got your quicker receivers where the 3 receivers are. You can have your bubble screens. You can a lot of combination routes to come inside and out of that. You can cause some serious confusion quickly. And then you also have the ability from here to be able to motion empty, whether you decide to do that with the running back moving out to make it a 3-by-2 side. Sometimes we'll also build ourselves a quad set at times and build empty with 4-by-1 formations, which is now goes into the category of abnormal formations for us. So empty for us is not always just a 3-by-2. It can also be a 4-by-1 set. Again, you still have an opportunity for quarterback run if you're willing to run your quarterback, like we are definitely willing to run the quarterback. The box in the run game is emptied out. There is only one person that can carry the ball, which is the quarterback. So we're going to count the box up and see. If it's a 5-man box, we feel pretty good. We got 5 offensive linemen, so we got 5 hats on 5 defensive linemen or defensive linemen and running backs. We'll try to run the ball in that situation. If we get a loaded up box, then we should feel pretty good about being able to get the ball to the outside edges, whether that's through bubble screens, whether that's through the short passing game, the middle passing game, or the deep passing game.
Well, there's big secrets that are being held down in Corvallis. Which one of the 2 quarterbacks will get the first snaps? We know that we're going to see both of them. We'll talk some quarterbacks, and we'll talk a little bit of defense as well, because a big change schematically there as well. You're watching Beavers Inside the Huddle.
Both very capable of running the offense, but they also are very different, and you all know that as well as I, that there is a different skill set. So it won't be that this guy's taking the first snap because he's got the upper hand. It'll be just whatever play in the openers is set for that young man.
You mentioned, oh, go ahead, Gene.
So it'll be the day of, like just whoever.
I'm sure Coach Baldwin already knows. So I know, but I've been sworn to secrecy. Sorry.
Well, who is it going to be? Marcus McMaryion or Seth Collins, the tail of the tape between the 2? There it is. Marcus McMaryion, a redshirt freshman quarterback to California. And spring game, both guys very effective, Steve. And Seth Collins, just as effective as you can see right there. Very efficient with his arm and his legs. And he's a true freshman.
True freshman, and the 3rd quarterback, the 2A, if you will, is also a redshirt freshman. So the Beavers share a very distinguished position, the only program in Division I that has not had a quarterback with a snap in college football.
Well, let's bring in the head man himself, Gary Anderson. All right, Coach Anderson, spill the secret. You've been sworn to secrecy. This is Inside the Huddle. We're here. Who's going to start?
Well, Steve just shared that information with me, the only one in the country, so I didn't know that. That makes me feel better. I appreciate that very much. You know, like we said all along, it really isn't a big secret, or there's not a lot of drama about it, which is the best thing with this football team. They don't really care who takes that first snap, and that's important for them to be able to come out and understand, hey, we're going to play with whoever's going to be there, and we'll put them in a position to be able to be successful, and the kids have wrapped their arms around it. So, you know, Dave knows what he wants, Coach McGiven knows what he wants, and we'll put the kid in the best position to be successful. Who starts the game has no bearing on who's going to take the next snaps or the most snaps at all.
Coach, you had a freshman start for you at Utah State. and it was an incredible several-year run. He's still there. He's still playing well. You don't feel unusual at all about starting a young kid, whether he's a redshirt freshman or a freshman.
I really don't. You know, it would be nice to have a quarterback that's had some experience. My biggest concern is you get into game 4 or 5 and somebody, you know, breaks the shoelace and they got to come out for a few plays. You're putting a young man in that's never done that before in the middle of the season, and that's where you want to definitely get experience for both of them. We as a staff have absolutely no problem playing freshmen at any position, and I think what we've done the past 4 or 5 years, you would see that and you would understand it does not bother us to play freshmen, whether it's a quarterback, a cornerback, a linebacker, whatever it may be. We're going to do our best to get the best 11 in that situation on the field. The quarterback is unique. It always is. It always will be. How they handle those moments is going to be so imperative to how we carry ourselves throughout this season, quite frankly.
Coach, let's go over to the other side where you like to talk, and that's defense. This is another big change. Like the spread on offense, we're going from a 4-3 at Oregon State to a 3-4. Tell us about the decision process. Is it talent? Some people think it's you have more linebackers than the linemen, so you go to a 3-4. Is it flexibility? Is it the schedule? Is it the Pac-12? Tell us about that decision.
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit of all those things together. You know, for us, the number one is the kids that are on your team, in your program this year that give us the best chance to be able to win, and that's what we want to do is build that defense that way. And it's for us to be able to have a mix, but my guess is that we'll be probably 65-70% odd front, you know, around maybe 30-25% in the odd front, if you will, as you go through time, or excuse me, in the even front. So you're going to see both, but we looked at it and we said we have some young, talented kids at the outside linebacker position that need the opportunity to be able to play. When you play a spread offense, our ability to be able to disguise and cause some issues pre-snap is better in the odd front than it is, quite frankly, in the even front. So it helps you. Whatever helps you the most currently is what we want to help us win football games this year. But as we move into the future in this league, it is our belief that the odd front gives you the best opportunity to get some people off the ball, to slow down and stop those spread offenses. You want to have eyes on the ball when the ball's thrown. You want to have eyes when the ball's handed off. And if one less defensive lineman is in there, it gives you the ability to disguise and have one more set of eyeballs on the football.
Well, you guys got a unique situation with Joshua James, a guy that you have made into that hybrid defensive end, now pushing him back to linebacker. Let's talk about his development as he's been in this system to become that utility player.
You know, all this kind of really started for myself as a coordinator in 2008 when we had 2 defensive tackles go down early in the year, and I had to take Derek Shelby and Greg Newman and move them from defensive end starters into the defensive tackle position. That's when we first started playing the odd front. And we also did another experiment when we took 2 defensive ends, Paul Kruger and Cole Misi, at Utah, and moved those kids in that situation. Those were all kids that were playing in that 2008 defense, and they were all experiments, a lot like Joshua was a few weeks ago and actually through spring. Joshua, the bottom line is he was excited about it. He got his weight down where it needs to be. He's a hybrid situation. He can rush the passer. He's a good enough athlete to drop, and he has very good knowledge of the game of football, so it allows him to do a lot of different things within the defense. He comes up on the line of scrimmage. People aren't going to tag him as a dropper. They're not going to tag him as a rusher because, quite frankly, they don't know because he does both. And Josh has really worked very hard in his coverage skills, understanding the back end of defense, which is very foreign for a kid that's played in basically a 4-3 defensive end scheme for his whole career. So, you know, again, it's just we ask a kid to do it. He jumped in head first and has done nothing, but he hasn't looked back one time, done nothing but a great job.
Let's take a look ahead of Weber State Wildcats, the school that brought Portland Trailblazer fans Damian Lillard.
Oh, yeah.
Now those Beaver fans that are Blazer fans, they don't want anything to do with Weber State. Well, this is the rest of the program we got for you right here on Comcast Sportsnet. Coming up right after us, hashtag Beavers football. Friday, hashtag Ducks football. Then Saturday morning, it gets you started at 9 a.m. with CSN Game Day. And Saturday evening, Ducks post-game live.
I think, Dusty, people will be able to find something to do on that Friday segment with the Ducks and on their late night on Saturday.
Not a big fan of them, huh? A guy who's learning not to like the Ducks at all is Coach Gary Anderson. We bring him back in for a preview of Weber State coming up.
Coach, you're very familiar with Weber State. You know some coaches there. I think Jay Hill, the head coach, a personal friend of yours. You coached with him. I believe you even recruited the young man.
I did. I recruited Jay back in the day at Ricks Junior College, and he came to Utah, had a very, very good career, a little bit of a time in the NFL, and then he came back and decided he wanted to coach. So, you know, Jay is one of those kids that you have a very close relationship with in coaching, and those relationships that I cherish. There's many, many people on that staff. We could have a 10-minute conversation with the people that I know that are on that staff, but you know, it makes me feel old. I got guys that are head coaches, position coaches. I knew their babies when they were babies, and they're not babies anymore. So, Steve, you know the feeling, right?
That's it, Coach. I really do. Hey, Coach, for the season, absolutely, you got to have some goals, season in the game. Where do you start? First game at Oregon State for a game goal for this team, and then for the season.
Well, number one is to win the football game, and that's all that matters. W's are the most important thing, and that may sound like coach talk, but that is the bottom line. Past that, we need to see where we're at. We need to see if we can handle it, mental toughness, how we can handle adversity. I want to see these kids handle that adversity that comes our way, which is in every football game. It may be in the first quarter, it may be in the fourth quarter, it may be for a longer period in the game. So we need to handle that. We need to show our physicality. We need to show in the fourth quarter that we're going to be the tougher team. We talk about that all the time. Win the fourth quarter. That's imperative as we move ourselves forward. And then the ability for young men to get into the moment. How are they going to execute when the lights are on in their stadium at home, and it's the most important 3 hours of the whole week as they move into the first game. So we're excited about the opportunity to compete, and away we go.
Coach Anderson, we really appreciate your time. We're less than 24 hours to kick, and you're making the time for us. Thank you, and good luck, Coach.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Go Beavs.
All right. Of course, you got to get the Go Beavs in.
He's got it.
All right. Real quick before we get out of here, what's your prediction? Weber State, Oregon
My
State?
prediction is something that Gary just said. The physicality that the Beavers have put in their program in the last 6 months and at camp are going to be the difference. Big win.
#Beavers football is next right here on Comcast Sportsnet.